Hello and welcome to Amateur Skeptics podcast number 30. With me tonight, on his debut return, Eric. Now I can't hear you. Hi.
Hi.
And of course, with me as always, Mac.
Podcasting from my bunker beneath the surface of Lakewood.
And the man who believes there's a ghost living in his basement, Ian.
No, I'm the ghost living in my basement.
Okay, well, but you still believe there's one down there, whether it's you or somebody else.
Oh, okay.
That's terrible. I'm throwing you under the woo bus. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. I'm actually in very good mood.
Good.
I started with a new doctor this morning.
Oh,
my
good.
last doctor, my doctor that I liked left the practice. The doctor I saw last, I didn't connect with. The doctor I saw today was great. And she did an electrocardiogram. My heart is in good condition, she says. All the blood's getting where it's supposed to. Circulation's going to the arms and legs evenly the way it's supposed to. She did tell me that she wanted me to start taking a baby aspirin a day, but I'd prefer to take the vegetarian ones rather than the ones with baby in them.
You know, clinically proven the babies work better.
Yeah, but I don't know where the babies are coming from.
And Eric, what have you been up to?
Well, I got a job a couple weeks ago. That's why I wasn't here last time.
You got a job?
I got a job.
Congratulations.
That's nice.
Time before that was, President's Day, and I was at a con.
Yeah.
Well, I know you're big on celebrating President's Day.
Absolutely.
Ian, what have you been up to?
Not much. You guys arrived this weekend. I'm on vacation. Looking forward to that.
Oh, that's nice. All right.
And this weekend, I'm going to a steampunk convention.
That's right. That should be
Anomaly
interesting.
Con.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
Nice. All right. Well, I've been fighting server fires, so, and I have other news. But Ian, what's going on with Skeptic Camp?
Oh, they finally announced a date. Saturday, May 7th. Is it the same place as last year?
No,
It
it
sounded
is
like to me.
not. I think that was in the physics department up there. It's
Okay.
somewhere else this year.
But it's still up at CU Boulder.
Yes.
Let's see. It says what building somewhere in here. Leeds School of Business. Kabobi Building, room 210.
All right. Yeah. So anyway, the link to the website will be in the show notes.
Let's see. We have.
Yeah. So I see. I
13
mean,
people so far.
Yeah.
signed up.
You signed up to go, but I don't see you signed up to do a talk.
I have to come up with one.
Oh. I have a
I
talk.
do plan to try and come up with something, but I haven't yet.
All right.
So
Ian, that looks like that might be a misspelling in where you read that. It looks like it's the Cable or Coble building at the Leeds School of Business.
that would make more sense.
They have it spelled.
on the-
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Skeptics Camp site, it's spelled Koeblbel.
Until you get down
Yeah.
underneath it, and then it's Koebel. So I'll go fix that. No problem.
Is this Krabappel?
Let's see.
It
All right.
has always a no cost
It's all
for
fixed. All better.
it. And 110 people altogether, and there's only 13. So, people have time to get in there and sign up.
Wow, only 36? I don't think that's right. I thought we talked the room is okay. Yeah, the room is bigger than that. There's only 36 spots up there, but we have room for 110.
Yeah. Room for 110, only 13 have signed up so far.
And we have 9 talks. So let's all go to Skeptic Camp.
I'm planning it.
Eric, it's a short drive. Come on out. Anyway, all right. So moving on.
Yeah, escape the tsunamis hitting the West Coast and come back to Colorado.
That was like a week ago.
Still,
All right. So anyway, we had our IIG meeting to establish the steering committee, and we did that this weekend. And then I think that went pretty well. We got a steering committee, and I am the chairman of IIG Colorado.
good for you.
Yeah.
You're going to make a good chairman too.
I hope so. We'll see. Well, I mean, I'm excited. Somebody had to do it. I wanted to make sure this happened. So, that is coming together. So it's going to be at iigcolorado.org. There's nothing there now. So I've got work to do.
I would make a good chairman only in the sense that I inhabit chairs.
There you go.
I'll try and be active. I wasn't there this weekend because I had a birthday party to go to.
Is that what happened? I knew Mac was working, but I didn't know what your excuse was.
The little guy turns 8, so.
Well, very good. Yeah, so that was fun. That was good. That's set up. That's moving. We've got a steering committee meeting coming up, and we'll figure out our first public meeting. I've got to sign some paperwork and send that in and get that started. And so I'm excited about that, actually.
I do want to throw a little something in here. I tried a new restaurant on Saturday that I'd never been to before that one of my coworkers advised.
Yeah.
A place called Smash Burger.
Oh, yeah. I've been to Smash
You
Burger.
would not believe this place. It was really, really good.
I
You've been there.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't describe it as very, very good. It was okay.
I would describe it as really, really good.
Oh, there you go. 'Cause, I've been there twice, and I have no real desire to go back. It was, maybe if it came up, but I wouldn't go out of my way for it.
Okay.
There you go. Yeah, so I put this in here. I wanted to talk about this real quick here. I've talked in the past about how when you go to these kind of functions where where it's UFO people and it's different types of pseudosciences and people who kind of believe these things, and it's kind of these insular groups.
Mm-hmm.
And, people get up there and they're kind of rah, talking about how, we know all this and,
They bolster each other.
Yeah, they kind of bolster each other and it becomes very insular. Well, the school that I went to, they did a lot of trips and a lot of out of classroom types of experiences, so it's an experiential learning type of setup. And for me, I think it was very good. I learned a lot of things, going out. In fact, I would say that I've learned way more in my experiential learning than I have ever learned in a classroom. And I think that that's true for most people. And so having this type of experiential learning, I do think is a good thing. But I was irritated, and maybe I shouldn't be, and that's one of the reasons I bring it up. Is because the reason that they were having this is because the district is, let's say, skeptical of the necessity of this program. So they want to get alumni to come back and build some documentation about how these trips affected their lives to continue the trip program. So, and so I think in some ways, it's okay because you're getting the alumni together and, you kind of want to, rah, get them, energized and motivated to do this next thing that you need. And so I understand that, but it just, sometimes it seems to me that these kinds of things, even in these kinds of, where I think that it's something important, the language in which it's presented sometimes is still insular. And maybe not, and maybe it's okay, but I was bothered by it because it felt like I was at a UFO conference.
So they were using language that was common to a group, not necessarily something that they could explain to a mass of people.
No, but that's the other thing though, is that they were the whole point of this is to be able to explain it to other people and not.
Yeah.
But so there was a piece of it to energize the internal community, and then there was another piece of it that is to spread the message. And so it wasn't quite as bad. The language wasn't quite as harsh, but I still detected just that little piece there, where it's like, we know the truth types of things. So,
okay.
Yeah, it was probably okay, but I wonder if if it because it's something I believe in, then I start worrying about confirmation bias. So I might be overanalyzing it.
Well, on the other hand, though, if you picked up something in a language that bothered you, it may be that other people are going to pick up something in the language they may not be able to put their finger on right off the bat, but they'll be saying, okay, well, I don't know if I really trust this.
Yeah, and that's a good point, and that maybe that my detecting of that is a key piece here, that maybe the way that they're spreading the message might not quite be right. But maybe it's fine. It's hard for me to tell when you're sitting in this situation. So, yeah. I just thought that was interesting, because here I am caught in this thing that I do think is important and that I do think works. And then I'm detecting these things, that trigger my, well, wait a second, instinct. So it was interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on. We've got some, science news here.
Tell us about mass extinction.
Yeah. So I thought this was interesting. And so I'm really glad that Eric is here, because as I was reading through this, I started to, so what this is about is that there is some paleontology or paleobiologists, right, that are saying that we are in the middle of the 6th mass extinction on the planet. And they're saying, so we've been through 5 mass extinctions prior to this, one of them being, of course, the dinosaurs. And they go through and they point out several others. And they have a couple of lines of evidence that they're looking at for this. And one of them is the amount of creatures that have become extinct in a certain time frame. And I didn't make good notes as I was going through this, unfortunately. But one thing that it kind of caught me here is that they're talking about, these numbers right now are not that high, but they're extrapolating out to look at these numbers and make some very long-term predictions. Eric, what did you think of this article?
There's that, and it has some thoughts about the methodology. Yes, we know we're losing a lot of species and have been for a while, and so I guess bringing that back to the forefront's not a bad thing, but they say that compared that we've lost 80 species in 500 years in the fossil record of mammals, and in the fossil record they're showing that they find an average extinction rate of 2 species per million years or something, but they didn't express these in terms of percentages, just straight up. And right now we know, I'd say like 99% of the mammals that exist on Earth, we've documented them. The fossil record is much thinner. I'd say at any particular time we knew less than 1% of the mammals that were around. So to compare just straighten up numbers seems kind of odd to me.
That's a really, really interesting thought.
Yeah.
So in other words, you're saying that there may have been a lot of other species that went extinct that we don't know about them, and we never saw them.
Percentage of loss as opposed to number of species lost, because
right. So
that'd be the apples to apples. Also, 500 years on a geologic scale, anything. So the documented rates for mass extinctions, just to compare to 500 years, you're definitely going to get larger.
Did you think that this was kind of some fear mongering?
It is probably the case that the journalist took what they were saying and you put the journalist is what said on the brink of a 6th mass extinction more than the paleontologist himself.
Okay.
I don't know.
I read through the article and I almost was of two minds on it. On the one hand, it sounds like they're saying, okay, these mass extinctions are cyclical and they're unavoidable. And on the other hand, they're saying, but we're doing it and it's our fault. And if we don't stop it, it will happen. So they're almost on one hand saying it's unavoidable, and on the other hand they're saying, but it's all our fault.
Right, and we're hearing the same kind of thing with global warming. There's some evidence there's a cycle of it, but at the same time, how much of it is our fault and how much is the natural cycle, and there's the same kind of thing. There's a lot of questions we can never answer because we don't know how it all works. Nature's a complicated thing, and so a lot of these things that are happening like this, they sound pretty horrific, but they're actually a regular cycle of nature. Every species at some point will most likely become extinct.
Well, and everyone dies, but you don't want to be murdered either.
Right. So I kind of felt, I thought, well, the time frames that they're extrapolating out to are unrealistic. There's no way that, they can kind of document things and extrapolate out that way, but I thought that was kind of erroneous. That statistic bothered me. I think the percentages point is very good because you've got to imagine that there are millions of species that went extinct that we don't have any sort of record for. Even the record of our own lineage is spotty at best.
Mm-hmm. And we know of
hard for those.
What's that?
We know of,
and we're looking extra hard for those.
Yeah, exactly.
We know of a bunch of different dinosaur species, but there were probably other dinosaur species that we have no idea that they even existed, or we may have one piece of them and we have no idea what it goes to.
Well, and we have that. We also have an issue where we have dinosaurs that we think are 2 different species that are just the adult and juvenile version, too.
Right, when we talked about the Triceratops.
Right.
Or the Torosaurus, or whatever they're calling it this week.
Yeah, and see, that's one of the problems with the ideas of the missing link. It's like, well, do you actually expect there to be a fossil record of every single animal to ever exist? No. You're going to have missing links. To actually utilize that and say, no, that's how you can prove evolution didn't happen is the dumbest thing. It's like there are gaps. There's always going to be gaps.
Futurama had a brilliant piece on the missing link.
I'm trying to remember that episode.
Why don't you give us a synopsis?
Basically, the professor is trying to shoot down some anti-evolutionists, and what about the missing links? And between these two, and it says, you mean this one? And it says there's no link between those two, and there's this one, and on, and then it cuts to like 4 hours later, and there's just 100 lines of things. And okay, fine, we don't have the link between this one and this one yet.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same argument. It's like, oh, hey, I see you've put something in there. Now you have 2 missing links every time you fill one spot. So yeah, so I thought the article was interesting and something that we should be aware of. I just thought the tone of the argument and of the article was a little shaky, and I didn't like some of the numbers that they were throwing at me. Yeah. All right, tell me about the Nintendo and how it could look for vision issues.
Ian, it's you.
Yeah, Ian. So Nintendo has the 3DS out, which is to replace the Nintendo DS, and it's the same kind of thing, 2 screens, and the top screen does 3D vision.
Yeah, the top screen does 3D vision. Now, this one to me was a fun one because it goes against the idea that watching TV is bad for your eyes and such, which has been disproven some time ago, but you still hear it. The warning on the package for the 3DS is that children under 6 should not use it because it could strain their eyes. Yet optometrists are saying, no, we want them to use it because the way the screen is set up, if the child is looking at it and doesn't see the 3D visions the way you're supposed to, that could be a sign they have more serious eye problems, and we can actually start dealing with it earlier.
Okay, but an ophthalmologist looked at this and said, well, I'm not so sure, because if they had this condition, which I can't remember the one that it is, that they see the world that way all the time anyway, so they might not actually notice that there's an issue, and they might not say anything.
Well, yeah, but that's
Good point.
That's one of the things with any certain conditions like that. But still, they wouldn't be if they'd look at it and say, "This, what's the big deal?" Is the way I'd see it. The kids just said, "Oh, cool, look at these 3D graphics." And someone with the condition would look at it and say, "What are you talking about? This doesn't look very exciting. Nothing's jumping out at me."
Well, yeah, but the point is, if somebody's used to seeing the world with this problem in the first place, they're not going to see that they're going to look at it and they're going to assume that what they're seeing is what the other person is seeing.
Right.
It's just like the same problem with color blindness.
Yeah.
If you're colorblind for long enough, when you're seeing what you're seeing for red is green, but as far as you know, everybody else sees green too.
Well, but in this case, their friends are bragging about how cool these 3D effects are, and they look at it and they're trying to figure out what's the big deal. That would tell you something. So whether or not they directly are realizing that, there is the possibility of you catching stuff like that by them realizing there's something different, and that would be something different. If you're watching something 3D and you say, "Wow, look at that jumping out at me," someone else is looking like, "I don't see it. What are you talking about? That doesn't look that impressive." Whether or not the other person realizes they're seeing it wrong, someone listening did, or the friend can say, "Hey, maybe there's something wrong with it." So I can understand the logic behind saying, "Hey, this thing could help people realize they have problems."
You know what though? I don't know. They gave some clues. Here's what to look for if your child can't see the 3D effects. Well, if they already have this condition, that's probably not going to happen so well. If for some reason the eyes get tired while doing this, and then they point out, but we really don't actually know a whole lot about how these effects work in the eye, and we still have a lot to learn about what the long-term effects from this might be. So there still needs to be a lot of study done. So on the other hand, they're saying, hey, look, there's a potential for this, which perhaps there is, but I think that they don't have any documentation to back that up.
Oh, yeah.
And also, Nintendo doesn't have any documentation to say that children under 6 shouldn't look at these things. They're just being extra cautious, which is fine. They're covering their own ass, and I appreciate that in some ways. But you're not going to stop kids under 6 from using these things.
Right.
So we really need to find out if there is a problem and quickly. But the problem is that it could take years to do these studies.
Maybe optometrists want kids under 6 to use it and get eye strain, so they sell more glasses.
Well, there's been studies done saying that watching too much TV and stuff actually doesn't screw up the eyes.
Yeah, we know it's masturbation.
And in doing something like this, I don't think it's going to cause that big of a problem, especially if the parents are being responsible, making sure the kids are not overly obsessed with it.
So, Brian, as a 2-shave-a-day palm man, how do you feel about that?
Let me adjust my glasses. Told you I'm a werewolf. Damn you.
That kind of reason doesn't make fun of.
That could explain the Team Jacob shirt.
All right.
Okay.
New
Anyway.
Bible draws critics of general neutral language.
Oh, yeah.
What is
Okay,
this?
Oh, once more showing just how perfect the Word of God is, someone has decided they need to rewrite it yet again. This time, however, they're trying to make it more gender neutral. Reading through the article, what I loved was there were areas where the original word was gender neutral, but it was switched over to he. And in some ways, they're actually going back the way it originally was written. Yet you have people who are upset over this because it's a change to the way they've always been taught. And if I can find that one quote here, it was one of these perfect quotes. What was it? One of the guys who had a problem with it, and it had to do with, this is the Word of God as translated or something like that. And it was like, okay. What was it?
Well, this is a perversion of the true Word of God as translated through generations of jealous patriarchs.
And that was basically what it said.
Here's the thing that what we need to remember here is that the woman is supposed to be under the man's foot at all times. So creating a general neutral Bible kind of abolishes what the true intention of the Bible was, and that was to make the woman, basically put her in her place. So you can't really, it's just a bad idea.
Well, that's what some of the people are actually more or less saying.
Well, that's what it says right here. Before the new translation even hit stores, it drew opposition from the Council on Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, an organization that believes women should submit to their husbands in the room or in the home.
In the home, and only men can hold leadership roles in the church.
There we go.
Okay.
Excellent.
Well, I believe that women should submit to their men in the households if both of the couple are into that. Or it can be reversed also.
Yeah.
There could be some leather or vinyl involved.
Well, what Bible do you normally read?
The Bartending Bible.
The Bartending? I mean, do you like the NBS or do you like the New American Standard Edition? Or do you just go straight back and go with the King James?
And crickets.
Okay. Here's the quote I was looking for.
I was
Okay.
given a Thomas Jefferson Bible at one point.
Well, that's an interesting Bible that we could have a whole nother discussion
that's one
on.
I'd like to read. Okay, here's the quote I was talking about. Randy Stinson, president of the CBMW and dean of the School of Church Ministries at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, said the changes are especially important to evangelicals. Yeah, I'm having pronunciation problems. Evangelicals believe in the verbal
plenary
inspiration of Scripture. We believe every word is inspired by God, not just the broad thought. So the original text reads brothers, even if that word in the original language is known to be brothers and sisters. Evangelicals believe the English translation should read brothers.
Okay, so the English translation of it was God's original intent?
That's almost what they're saying here, is, the Word of God is the English translation we've been dealing with all this time, not what the actual words mean in the original.
I don't care whether the Bible is gender neutral or not, but I'm starting to care that it should be gender neutral now.
Yeah.
Just because these people are so small of thought.
Oh yeah, that's one of the things. It's like some of this is getting more accurate to the way it was originally written, which is, supposedly the Word of God's important the way He gave it to you. And we know the translations have changed. We know there's a bunch of different translations out there because the words have, the original words don't quite have a meaning we can translate it to accurately. So we do what we can to make it fit. And so, when they really get into how you have to follow the, and he's saying, the original text, it's like the original text of your translation. So yeah, there is, to actually be protesting this so strongly, it definitely shows a issue of not having much in the way of original thought. You're so closed-minded, so caught up in your own little world.
Well, they're caught up in a patriarchal way of thinking, and they are basically treating their women as accessories.
Oh, yeah.
For me, this is a non-issue, not my book. Let them
Right.
figure it out. And here's the other thing is that there are so many different copies of the Bible that you can choose from, that choose the one you like. Go get the Jewish Study Bible. Go get, whatever Bible you want and go ahead and go with it. If you want the general neutral Bible, go ahead. If you want the one where every animal is changed to the pig, so you have the pig of God, go get it. So I really don't care.
In one of Neil Gaiman's books, he wrote about various Bibles with typos in them. And some of the ones he mentioned were real, and some of the ones were
You're
made up.
talking about Good Omens.
Yes, Good Omens.
Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett.
Yeah.
The Unrighteous Bible, know ye not that the unrighteous shall inherit the earth?
But some of the ones they mentioned in there are real. They're actual Bibles with those typos in them.
I still love the one. I'm pretty sure that the one that he was talking about, the main one he was talking about was fictional. But the Bugger All This Bible, which had the special inserts in there, where the typesetter had written part of the verse and then added "Bugger all this for a lark. Any man with good sense would be out on a day such as this."
I'm more concerned if they can produce a Q document or not. That's what I want. You know what the Q document is?
What's the Q document?
There's your homework. When you look at the Bible, the first three,
continuum is beyond record keeping.
Well, that's exactly the problem, right? Because you have Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and so when they're talking about the
George,
Mark and
John,
Priority,
and Ringo, and
yeah,
Paul.
when you're talking about that, they start talking about the Mark priority. It shows that Mark came first and the other two were written afterwards, where they're all supposed to be written at the same time, right? But when you start looking at the language and what's in each of the documents, you go, wait a second. They all have everything that's in this one, and then these two look like they might have been written parallel, and then they say, but then the excuse is, well, they used stuff from the Q document that Mark didn't. So it's like, whatever, go away.
Okay.
I think that's how it works. Somebody who's more Bible scholarly than me can correct me if I'm wrong, and I would, absolutely encourage it.
Okay, on to Peter Popoff.
Oh, Peter Popoff! Don't we love Peter Popoff? Do we know who Peter Popoff is? Peter
Sounds
Popoff.
like a breakfast cereal.
I'm sorry, what's that?
He sounds like a breakfast
He
cereal.
does kind of sound like a breakfast cereal, and unfortunately, he's a faith healer, and he's one of the.
He claims to be a faith healer.
Well, I mean, just because nobody's proved it. Anyway, so Popoff has a reputation for saying that, God is going to kill him if he doesn't raise $8 million, I think it was. I think he did that a couple times, and he must have raised it.
Hold on a second, then. Did he do this first, or was that...
this is stuff he's done.
Billy Graham did that multiple times, too.
I don't know who the first one was. Popoff has done that several times. Let's see, now I have to refresh myself. I put this article in 2 weeks ago. So, anyway, okay, that's right. Okay, I'm sorry. So, in this article, now Popoff is basically going beyond curing people of, their ailments, and now he can also clear away your debt with his healings. So somehow God is going to take your debt away from you. This coming from a man who already has declared bankruptcy.
Well, clearly he's using God to take away his debt.
Or the U.S. legal system.
Yeah, I guess the argument here is that, well, he can do it for other people, but he can't do it for himself. Because God is working through him, not on him, right? I guess you could use that pleading, right? So
that sounds like a special pleading.
Yeah. So I had more to say when I put this in here, but basically it's just. I think faith healing's absurd on the surface of it anyway. It's one of those things that hits my hot button. And then to see him go beyond that and say, hey, because it's like now he has to, he's up in the ante, right? He's got because he's been out of the limelight for so long. I don't think he's even on TV anymore. So it's these kinds of things that get him media attention.
Well, if you look at it though, debt is one of the big issues that people have now. I mean, there are so many people in debt, and there are so many people in debt so far that they will never pull themselves out by themselves, that he's appealing to just another form of human weakness. He appealed in the first place to people who wouldn't be able to physically get well without his intervention. Now he's appealing to people who won't be able to get free of their debt without his intervention.
this is interesting. He said that the guy who wrote the article was not a fan. Supernatural debt cancellation or debt cancellation. So supernatural debt cancellation or debt cancellation is just hogwash. There is no spiritual justification or biblical justification for any of these things of things that they do. Okay.
Well, it looks like if Popoff his plan is, it looks like he's actually offering a guarantee though. Double your IQ or no money back.
Yeah, really. It was funny. This is the same guy who had his own church ransacked. They were supposed to be sending Bibles over to Russia, and so he's collecting all this money to do this, right? And they were gonna, I guess, put him on balloons and balloon him over. I don't know where the heck they were supposed to drop. But instead of sending them, he has some people in his organization break in. And what's funny about it, though, is that they couldn't get the window to break from the outside because they had just recently had it changed out for some reason. So it was one of the security windows, so they couldn't break it out. So one of them goes inside, busts it out, so all the glass is on the outside when they finally broke it. Uh-huh. So then the next day, Popoff is, telling everybody all the evidence is there, right, that this is an inside job. And the other thing that's interesting is that all the Bibles got hosed, but yet none of the equipment that was the printing presses and stuff like that was damaged in any way. So these vandals just wanted to get the Bibles, nothing else. And so Popoff is like, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna give money to Jesus. You probably have some money in your savings, or you've been planning a trip, or you have a piece of property. You're gonna give that money to Jesus, and it's gonna come back to you tenfold. And I'm right here. I'm gonna give $500. Later on, it was, I'm gonna give $100. It kind of went down as he went on. And who knows whether he ever gave that money. But it's one stunt after another with Popoff.
The thing with the break-in sounds almost like an insurance scam. I don't know if he was, it was in James Randi's Faith Healers that I was reading about this. And I don't know, if the insurance paid out on it or not. It didn't matter because he collected so much money. And this is after, James Randi had already exposed him on the Johnny Carson show.
Well, that's the thing. How many times does he need to get caught before people start saying, hey, wait a moment?
Well, there's an excellent question.
To this guy.
How long are we going to let these people get away with it?
The beauty of it is he's a preacher and he keeps getting forgiven by God and starting all over it.
That's what it sounds like.
It does sound like that, for sure. Yeah, so, this guy, I find this guy bothersome. All right, moving on. Unless you want me to continue ranting about him. Found another exorcism.
No, we go on to Popoff forever, I know that.
Our bi-weekly exorcism?
Our bi-weekly exorcism. This week, it's a Palestinian woman dies during exorcism. She was already being treated for psychological problems when she returned to her family home to live when things got worse. So her problems were escalating. She believed that she was possessed by an evil spirit. And apparently, and the wording on this is weird because they say that there was bruises on her face, but then they say as if this could have anything in relation, there were scars on her feet. Well, this scars have to be old to scar in general. So why is it in here? The bruises, I understand. Scars on the feet, maybe it indicates, past history or something. I don't know.
How long have she been doing these sessions?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah. So I don't know. But she was clearly mentally ill. But she had to have help. Somebody believed that she was possessed and helped her out. So.
Now, I don't know if anyone else finds this scary, but the fact that we can find one of these things for each podcast.
Well, and that's my intention.
Yeah,
is right.
Still, you find these are happening. It's not like this is old news or anything. It's like this stuff is happening. We'll find at least one incident every 2 weeks.
This is from today's news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a bit scary because if we're finding one every 2 weeks of reported, of documenting how much is really going on here.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering. And so I'm trying to follow them as closely as possible. And
Right.
I'm a little bit behind because I think that I remember that there was another exorcism that I read about. Mom accused of killing daughter in exorcism. Here's another child killed, a 3-year-old child killed during exorcism. So here's 2 for this week. I'll stick this one here later. Massachusetts mom accused of killing daughter in exorcism. And because it happened in the States, we've got a lot more information. So I'll stick this in here too. I mean, my point in doing this is that, I'm gonna continue to track these throughout the year. And my intention is to have at least 1 per podcast. And I imagine if I look hard enough, I'll find 2 or 3 per podcast. And I'm just trying to like Ian said, is, these things are happening right now. So I'm just watching them for me personally, and I'm sticking them in the podcast, because I think it's disgusting.
It is disgusting.
So there you have it. Now this one is in the United States. A Massachusetts mother accused of killing daughter in exorcism.
Contagious.
I know. And unfortunately, I did not read this prior, but I imagine if I look back even further, I imagine I'll find another one too, because there seems to be no lack of them. So, all right. Let's talk about castle law. Mac?
Let's talk about castle laws.
What the heck is castle law?
Castle laws come from English common law.
Ooh.
And essentially it's the belief that a person's home is their castle and that they have a right to absolute safety within their home. 31 states have different variations of what are known as castle laws or castle doctrines. The states that have castle laws, let's see. The ones that have what is known as a stand your ground law, which indicates that you have no duty to retreat no matter where an attack takes place on you. Duty to retreat says that if you have the ability to retreat from an attacker, you must retreat. But if you have a stand your ground law, you don't have to do that. You basically make your stand where you're at, and you can meet force with force. The states with stand your ground law are Alabama, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Louisiana, Montana, Nevada, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Washington. In fact, one of my coworkers lives in Georgia, and she had a bit of information about a suburb outside of Atlanta called Kennesaw. In Kennesaw, every citizen is required to keep a firearm in good repair in their home and to be skilled in its use. They have an incredibly low crime rate, particularly with respect to home invasions.
Okay, I'm gonna, that's an interesting correlation, but I don't think that they've ever proved causation. And they say the same thing here in Denver. That by having the concealed weapons law, that crime has gone down. And so it's like, okay, that it's interesting, but more study should be done there before people are.
Well, in Michael Moore's movie
off.
Bowling for Columbine, he goes up to Canada where they leave the doors unlocked all the time, and not every one of them have guns, and yet their crime rate is down.
That's bullshit.
So
they're not everybody up there in Vancouver
still
is doing that. And I'll bet you could find towns here in the United States that do the same thing.
Right.
Don't Michael Moore me.
I had a lot of problems with that movie, but still, I'm saying that does that itself prove that guns? No, that the opposite said that they don't all have guns and they feel safer.
Well,
so.
Anyway,
I understand your point there that that either we have guns or we don't. But in England, how many people have been killed at soccer games?
Throw some Bill Hicks in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, some
the
of them
states
brought
that have a
suckaballs.
castle law are Alaska, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Kansas, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, Mississippi, Missouri, Nevada, New Jersey, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oregon, Rhode Island, Utah, and West Virginia. And Wyoming, sorry. And Colorado's castle law, which is also known as the Make My Day law, after the famous statement by Harry Callahan in, I believe it was one of the Dirty Harry movies. I think it was, I'm thinking that it was You know what? I don't know which one it was. And I'm not going to worry about it right now.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Anyway,
Sudden impact.
any occupant of a dwelling is justified in using any degree of physical force, including deadly physical force, against another person when that other person has made an unlawful entry into the dwelling, and when the occupant has a reasonable belief that such other person has committed a crime in the dwelling in addition to the uninvited entry, or is committing or intends to commit a crime against the person or property in addition to the uninvited entry, and when the occupant reasonably believes that such other person might use any physical force, no matter how slight, against any occupant.
Right. So now this is interesting because I just recently took my concealed weapons permit course. And so this is one of the things that we talked about. And the gentleman who teaches it used to be a police officer. And I think he works for security for Denver Public Schools. And he says, if somebody enters your house and, and they're going to go steal your Wii, he says, I'm probably not going to shoot him, but I could. And which I thought was interesting, and so it's like if that's all it is. Any other crime, if they're going to steal something, an ashtray, you can use deadly force, and you can continue to fire until that person is no longer a threat. Wow.
Right. Yeah, but shoot the guy when they're about to steal something that could get you in trouble for a crime as well.
Well, but he's in your house. He's in your dwelling.
He's stealing your pot.
No, I think he said weed, didn't he?
Weed?
Okay.
I thought he said weed.
Yeah, no, okay, stealing your weed, yes. Yeah, so that, I mean, I thought in some ways that seems extreme, so there's still a certain amount of judgment that you should use. But the one thing I asked him, I said, well, that doesn't keep you from getting sued, does it? He says, oh no. He says, there is a lawyer attached to every bullet that comes out of your gun. So,
now, see, it's interesting you should say that because according to the statute, it does actually say that you are immune to both criminal prosecution and civil prosecution.
Yeah, it means that you'll probably win. It doesn't mean that they can't keep you in courts and cost you a lot of money.
Subsection 4, any occupant of a dwelling using physical force, including deadly physical force, in accordance with the provisions of subsection 2 of this section, shall be immune from any civil liability for injuries or death resulting from the use of such force. I also went and did a little research. I talked to a Lakewood police officer to see what his input on this was. And at first, he didn't really want to talk about it. He said there was no such law, which I asked a couple of intelligent questions, though, and he kind of loosened up at that point. And he had said that he'd never seen the Make My Day law used, and he'd never seen it abused in his 11 years as a Lakewood police officer. He'd neither seen it used nor abused in that time period. He did also say, though, when I asked about civil penalties, he said that even if he himself had a shooting and were cleared by the DA, that he could still be sued in civil court and have to face charges in civil court and possibly have to face a wrongful death suit or an injury suit.
Right, and that is a different piece of legislation that covers that because that's not castle law because it's not a dwelling. So there's laws, in use of physical force, special relation. I think this is the one. That basically, I mean, you have the right to go to the aid of a third party.
In a lot of these laws, you do have the right to go to the aid of a third party, correct?
Right, and that's not castle law.
Particularly in the stand your ground laws, you have the right to go to the aid of a third party.
And that's probably different. I mean, that law is a little bit different. Here in Colorado, we don't quite have the same kind of law, but if somebody is threatening you, you have the right to use force against them in this state.
Correct. The other thing that was interesting in my conversation with him, he suggested that I look up a case with a burglar who broke into a house, entered the garage, and got locked in the garage and didn't have a way out of the garage, and was forced to subsist on dog food and Pepsi until the family got back from vacation. The burglar sued the family and won. But according to the research that I did, that looks to be a myth.
Really?
So, yeah, that appears to be a mythical case. There was another case that I did not get a chance to find that my wife referenced that was about a former police officer that shot an intruder in his house and was charged with it. And part of the thing was that the former police officer appears to have shot the intruder in the back. But I need to find out about that case, and I'll bring that up in a later episode.
Castle law is 18-1-706 Colorado Revised Statutes. Is it
18-1-704
704?
and 704.5.
Okay. And, you know, there's a, what, I got some of this stuff at Mitchie.com. Sorry, I'm away from the microphone. That's terrible of me. I got some of this stuff at Mitchie.com. And so this stuff's all available online for the different revised statutes for each state are there.
In fact, the Wikipedia entry that I put in there actually points you toward the laws for each state, and is a great resource on that. So if you want to find out what your state's particular laws are, go to the Wikipedia entry if you want to, and it'll direct you to the link.
All right. Case law is interesting. I'm glad that it hasn't been abused, because in some ways to me it seems extreme.
I did find an article in here that I connected to this about the use of deadly force for lawful self-defense. And this is from the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. But basically what they put in there was that a license to carry a concealed weapon is not a license to use it. And they included the types of weapons that are included in the concealed weapons law. But anyway, that was kind of interesting in there too. But the thing that sticks with me on the stand your ground laws is that any place where you have a legal right to be and you are attacked, or any place where you have a reasonable right to be and you're attacked there, you have the right to defend yourself by whatever means are necessary.
See, and in Colorado they talk about being innocent of the situation. So in other words, as long as you haven't provoked anybody, you're covered. But if you are provoking the situation, you're no longer innocent of the situation, and you probably can be charged.
The other interesting piece of information from the Lakewood officer was that he was very clear on the fact that you have the right to defend yourself up to the point where the attack is no longer a danger. So if the person loses consciousness, you do not have to, you can't continue to attack that person. You can't continue wailing on them after they've lost consciousness, because they're no longer a threat. If their arms and their legs are broken and they can't come after you outside of a Monty Python movie, they're probably no longer a threat.
Right. Or if they leave the situation. If they turn around and walk the other way, they've left the situation.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in that case, they're still a threat because they know what your house looks like.
Uh-huh.
Gotta kill them.
All right. So, Ian.
I'm kidding.
Let's move on. Ian, did they actually find Atlantis?
No, but okay. The first link I have here is to the Atlantean Conspiracy main site.
Excellent.
And right under it, I have their. If you would do a search on their site for HAARP, HAARP. Now I ran across the. This is what started the other links I have following this. I ran across all their stuff. A lot of videos. I haven't watched them all because most of them are like 40 minutes long. But basically, the HAARP stuff is claiming that the recent earthquake and tsunami in Japan were man-made and specifically made to target Japan to teach them a lesson.
Oh my God! Wait, hold on. How does that go back to the Atlantean conspiracy?
That's the name of the blog site that has it.
Okay, because there was because there was something in the news here about some people who once again thought that they had found Atlantis. So that's what I thought maybe this was.
No.
Okay.
The Atlantean Conspiracy is a blog site that basically hits on every single one of these conspiracy theory things.
Okay.
So I saw that, and I saw HAARP, and I decided to look up what HAARP was. And so the next link is the HAARP General Information, which is explaining the basic of what HAARP is and giving the more scientific kind of bland details. But basically it is an observatory that is set up to do research on the ionosphere to look at weather patterns, stuff, long-term variations in the ozone layer, stuff like that. And according to the official site, it's all scientific study. But according to the conspiracy theorist, it is a weapon of mass destruction, which is the next link. HAARP, Washington's New World Order weapon. According to these people, they've had former government employees come forward and say that HAARP is a weapon of mass destruction. It is basically what they can. It was leftover part of the Star Wars Strategic Defense Initiative, and what it does is you can somehow send the magnetic fields into the ionosphere and cause all sorts of different climate wherever you want around the world, and redirect it. You can cause earthquakes and hurricanes and every kind of man-made disaster, or not man-made. Every kind of stuff we thought was nature-made is actually man-made. That's how I should say it.
Okay.
So. No, apparently Mother Nature does nothing anymore. Haiti, everything is being done by these people.
Well, Haiti was caused by the devil.
That's according to the religious type. According to conspiracy theories, I think I have seen stuff that says it was the same type of thing. It's the New World Order. They're trying to get control of it all by basically using nature as their cover to destroy nations.
And secondly,
we used a weapon against America's number 2 enemies, Haiti and Japan.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Ooh, they're dangerous.
I think in a fight between Rhode Island and Haiti, Rhode Island could take Haiti.
There are probably more guns.
Secondly, on the Japanese tsunami, this is really kind of offensive considering the huge loss of life and the damage to Japan's infrastructure. It's offensive for this person to take this conspiracy theory nonsense and just spread it all over, when everybody knows that the Japan earthquake and tsunami was actually caused by giant monsters fighting.
Oh, boy.
But if you look through the site, they have all sorts of graphs that show that HAARP was more active right before the earthquake hit, and all this other stuff. That apparently the New World Order can pretty much wipe anything out if they wish, so desire, just by aiming the HAARP at different areas of the planet.
I'd say that's a good reason to join the New World Order, personally. Was
it predicted by the Global Consciousness Project?
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if someone made that connection somewhere. I've always just loved how all these conspiracy theories interlink in all sorts of weird ways. It's like, wow.
Yeah, actually, the Global Consciousness Project is a random number generator that they claim that when these kinds of incidents happen, that they get some sort of a measurable effect in these random number generators, and they're collecting all this data.
Wasn't there a Nick Cage movie about that?
Oh, there might be. I don't know.
Well, that was a stupid movie. I know the one you're talking about. That was
Knowing, right? Or 2012.
Yeah.
No, 2012 was John Cusack. Never mind.
Oh. I think it was Knowing. That was just a bad.
That one.
Bad
man.
movie.
2012. It's funny to see how many people say, "Well, the movie's out." Yeah, have you watched that piece of trash? Come on.
I haven't watched that one yet. But...
Wait. See, the thing of it is, the Mayans predicted the 2012 disaster, but what they predicted was the release of the movie 2012, which was a disaster.
And then that was over the other day when we were watching Signs. Yeah, that was bad.
What, are you trying to...
That one apart.
Things we learned from watching this movie.
Man.
If you are an alien with a severe sensitivity to H2O as a compound, please, while invading, wear a waterproof suit.
Put on some clothes.
We were ripping that one apart. You can ask Mac. I was really going off. I couldn't take that one seriously at all.
All right. Hey, so I want to mention this because I thought this is what you were going to talk about. Tsunami buried lost city Atlantis may be found. So they're claiming that Atlantis may be in southern Spain, and it says Atlantis, the fabled lost city mentioned since antiquity. Well, wait, it was mentioned since Socrates made it up, but okay, antiquity, whatever.
Socrates is antiquated.
He is kind of antiquated, isn't he? Okay. May have been found recently, according to research by Spain, America, and Canadian scientists. Now, I don't know what they found, but it's doubtful that, we're going to find,
Well, along that area, they found many old cities that have sunk.
Well, sure.
There was flooding and all sorts of stuff happening. They've yet to find some big, huge, massive city, island city that had all sorts of weird technology. They keep finding old ruins. Okay.
Right, okay, but
they probably found it.
But to prove it's Atlantis, to me, they're going to have to find. Oh, it says Plato. Was it Socrates or Plato? I thought it was Socrates. Plato described description of Atlantis.
Socrates made this stuff.
I'm sorry. Was it Socrates?
It would have been Plato.
It was Plato. I'm sorry. My mistake.
It was Plato.
Okay.
But Plato reported stuff that he had heard from years before. So
He made
I don't
it
know
up.
whether he made it up or whether he's just reporting something that somebody else might have exaggerated.
He used it as a way to get a point across. That's all he was doing.
Anyway, I thought Atlantis was actually in the Pegasus Galaxy.
So for it to be Atlantis, they're going to have to find advanced technology. They're going to have to find a robot, right?
Right.
You know, I mean...
Something more than just a ruined city.
Yeah, exactly. You know, for it to be the fabled city of Atlantis. Mentioned, you know, since antiquities.
At the very least, they've got to find a Stargate.
Yeah, anyway, so I haven't read this complete article, but it's interesting, but, I mean...
Well, these claims have been made before. Like I said, well, they just find ruins of a city in the seas, and that's not that unexpected.
Right,
know?
and I will go out on a limb here and say that probably the scientists aren't calling it Atlantis. Somebody else is.
Probably.
Right.
All right.
Well, let's see. The link you sent us was from the Epic Times.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not really getting the sense that that's a real strong scientific journal.
So we're already dogging this without reading the article. I admit.
Okay, the article does say the researchers hope to be able to match geological formations from Plato's descriptions of Atlantis and date unearthed artifacts to the time of the lost city. So it sounds like it's the researchers who say it's Atlantis.
All right. Okay, I'm wrong. Which researchers, though?
The ones
from the dig?
Spain, America, and Canada, including archaeologist Richard Freund of the University of Hartford in Connecticut.
All right. Well, okay. I'll say no more because clearly, I mean, it's something that I want to look into a little bit more, and I'm wrong. So there you go. But isn't the fable that it's an advanced city?
Right.
So if
I think
it was supposed to be, per Plato's description, they were supposed to be advanced, but mainly they were supposed to be advanced in terms of their culture and how they treated their fellow beings. And even his descriptions of them being advanced in that respect was merely advanced for his time.
well, okay,
I don't think you'll find anything overly impressive there.
but that's provable.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
I've heard a lot to say that people think that Atlantis was actually their remains of a city off of Crete that they believe may have been the civilization it was based on.
Yeah, that's the one I've heard. So to move it up to Spain.
I've heard it thrown about as being the Minoans. I've heard it as being in many different places, but Spain has never been a location that I've heard of.
All right. Are we done with this? I'm done.
I think we're done.
We got anything else?
Not that I think of. I think we're done.
I think so, too.
Another one in the can.
That's right. Well, thanks, guys, for joining me.
From my fortified bunker.
I'm sure it was educational for somebody.
Hopefully.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics.
Holy moly!
Bazinga.
Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast. For more information about the Amateur Skeptics, go to amateurskeptics.com. To send us feedback, suggestions, or big flaming insults, feel free to contact us at WTF@amateurskeptics.com. Other contact information can be found on our website.
You can leave a voicemail for the Amateur Skeptics podcast at 720-295-7785. Music for this podcast was provided by OFM. To find out more about OFM, go to myspace.com/OFMHQ. This podcast is released under a Creative Commons, No Derivatives 3.5 license. Thank you for listening to the Amateur Skeptics podcast.
Amateur Skeptics website, Facebook, and podcast album art is provided by and copyright Shadow Knight Digital Portraiture. Larger prints or custom pieces are available upon request. Please do not attempt to alter or commercially distribute without written permission.